We are Makilala TV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
Welcome to Makilala. My name is Cristina Pastor. History tells us that burlesque used to be a form of theatrical comedy in the 1800s. Women used the body in provocative ways as a form of resistance against the conservative morality of the Victorian era. It came with a storyline, some slapstick, some dancing, some striptease. Over the years, however, burlesque lost some of its earlier traditions and became all about striptease. Two Filipino burlesque artists are joining us today to talk about this form of entertainment and the public's perceptions about it. Lady Mabuhay, who is known for her sultry dynamism, has performed across the US and Canada since 2016. Karen Joy Pangantihon, who is an actress and singer and a writer, has included burlesque in her repertoire of live performances. Welcome to Makilala, Lady and Karen.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, welcome to Makilala again. Let's start with something current. Lady, how is burlesque being affected by COVID?
It's affected. A lot of performers who are full-time artists, they don't have any work. So the good thing is that a lot of producers have become innovative and started producing online shows. Last year, in one case, a producer had a neighbor who left town, and so her apartment was free, for example, and so she was able to broadcast the show from this apartment. And so a lot of people are just streaming their shows, and ultimately artists just find innovative ways to
perform,
make it happen. Yeah.
Karen, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. Burlesque falling under the arts and entertainment category. Because it falls under that category, it is suffering like a lot of different art forms like theater, film, music, and especially in New York with live performance venues being shut down, it has been really difficult for artists to have a platform to express, to be creative, to find work. But I feel like burlesque performers are very gritty. They have, that true grit. They are hustlers. They have found ways to stay creative, to find work, and to express themselves, like Lady Mabuhay was saying, through the internet. And, there's IG Live, there's Zoom shows, and the list just goes on and on and on.
It's probably not the same, right? Performing on Zoom. Anyway, Jen, you have a question.
Yeah, what is burlesque? I mean, I heard earlier Cristina said it's also striptease. Are they the same? Are they different?
Excuse me, sorry about that. Burlesque is actually the mother of striptease. And it started to change in the 70s and 80s when like direct contact was and like striptease videos, striptease itself just was more became a more prominent thing. Pardon me about that. And so it is the same. I think it's the same. I think that in burlesque the audience is just different, and striptease, like what you usually see in gentlemen's clubs, for example, the audience is different in that it could be a little bit more private.
So what inspired you to do? Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Cristina.
No, go ahead, Jen. Yeah.
I mean, what inspired you to do burlesque? I mean, how did your family react?
didn't like it too much, but the more I talk about it as a theater, just to get just to plant some seeds in their heads that this is actually a platform for women to showcase their bodies in such a way that it tells a political story. I mean, if you think about it, in the last at least 100 years, it's only been about that long where women are feeling more free to go against social pressures to hide their bodies or to have their bodies politicized. I mean, it was only that long ago when showing your ankle was, so taboo. Now, I think what's interesting to think about when it comes to burlesque and just women's perspectives of, social perspectives of women's bodies in general, is that the way we look at, say, a famous woman twerking on Instagram is the same reaction we used to have, society used to have, towards women who used to show their ankles. So it's really our way of saying, our bodies, this is what we get to say about our bodies. This is how we want to display it without your permission.
And
Karen, what was your family's reaction?
Oh, my family's reaction? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, Karen.
My family's reaction, they didn't like it too much, but I don't really like to hide that from my family because I'd rather have them know, and I'd rather rock the boat to get them to understand something, to get out of their bubble, than to try to hide it from them or to try to sugarcoat it. So the reaction was not very
Karen?
so
Yeah.
Karen?
Yes. Just to add to that, I think burlesque is it is stripping with an element of more theatricality, I believe. And when burlesque was introduced to me, it was introduced as the art form of teasing. And to me, that was extremely powerful to hear. And I went to the New York School of Burlesque, and it was a time where I could become very creative and tell a story with my body. And it was a form of theater where there weren't any limits. It was limitless. You could do whatever you want. You could wear whatever you wanted. You could say whatever you wanted. You could tell whatever kind of story you wanted to tell. And coming from a musical theater background where it was specifically whitewashed, it still is, burlesque was an element or a form of theater where what I looked like didn't matter as much. And so burlesque was extremely freeing for me and empowering for me. And when I perform burlesque, I've never been fully naked. I have never shown my body bare completely. So my family, I think being an actor or performer to begin with made them a little uncomfortable. That in and of itself was uncomfortable for them. But they have been very, very supportive. Oddly enough, I think my partners, like my boyfriend at the time, I felt like they probably had they were a little more uncomfortable with that and I don't think it was because I was being sexual. I think looking back now, it seems like they were a little intimidated by how comfortable I was and empowering I was, because I mean, this can go into a rabbit hole, but a lot of men that I have dated or that I've come across have made comments about Asian women and Filipino women specifically being submissive, being gentle, being just so kind and so nice. And I met a lot of, and like they would say things like, I met a lot of Filipino nurses and they are so caring. And I think seeing a Filipino woman specifically doing burlesque is a little new for them. or uncomfortable for them because they're not used to seeing a woman be so empowered.
So Karen, along the same lines of that and what Lady was sharing earlier, so Filipinos, sometimes they have been stereotyped as, unfortunately, sex objects.
Mm-hmm.
How does burlesque has it been affected by the call from community members and leaders not to treat Pinoy or Pinays as sex objects?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, again, just going back to burlesque being a form or the art of tease, it gives women or the performers more say in what they want you to see. I'm going to reveal what I want to reveal when I want to reveal it. I am going to reveal it in a way that I want to feel like that I'm comfortable with and in my own timing. And I think burlesque is a way to tell a story. For example, my first burlesque performance was I used the song Filipino Box Spring Hog by Tom Waits. And it was a performance piece where I was kind of like a lechon, right? So I was stripping. I started off as a lechon. So it is very silly, right? Because I had, the tail, I had the leaves covered. And for me, it was a way to tell the story about how I felt being a Filipino woman sexualized by men. I've had, yeah.
Very much. I'm sorry, Karen. Within the tradition of burlesque, which is some kind of a caricature, a parody of something. At the time that you were doing it, you were making a caricature of the lechon. I just made the connection. Anyway, lady, do you how is burlesque different from stripping? Can burlesque dancers be called strippers alternatively, or are they not the same thing?
I think so. I think ultimately burlesque artists are strippers. I mean, you're removing clothing. That's kind of one of the essential parts of being burlesque. But I think that it's up to each individual artist how they want to be called. Some people don't like to make the connection between burlesque and stripping, but most people, I think, most performers eventually become okay with it because they realize that it's not something to be ashamed of. The body's not something to be ashamed of.
Mm-hmm.
Since you said body is not something to be ashamed of, I mean, there are a lot of magazines that say you should love your body, and yet at the same time, they feature impossible categories to reach for different age group of women as far as body type, or what's a perfect body. So in the light of these, I mean, it's not surprising that a lot of people have so much body image. I mean, what you do, you have to be confident with your body. So what do you advise young kids or older women? How do you become comfortable with your own body? How do you be confident?
I think well, I think a lot of that has come from just being a dancer. You have to be comfortable, first of all, on stage. You have to be comfortable to execute certain moves. And if you screw up on stage, then it's your body, it's your physical person that is being shown that is making a mistake. And then when you start to make this connection, at least for myself, when you start to make this connection that you're imperfect, then you realize that ultimately you are, if that makes any kind of sense. But as far with regard to, say, magazines still using airbrushed models, we're getting away from that. You'll see more real bodies in magazines, which is great. And the other thing about burlesque is that there are so many bodies represented on stage. from every size, every gender. And so that is why it's so political, because the body has always been politicized about what is supposed to be correct versus what is real and something to be celebrated.
So tell me, what are the kinds of women who would do burlesque? Can you tell us about the kinds of people that you work with?
Well, everyone. So yes, you have cisgendered women. You also have trans people who are performing, and you just basically run the spectrum. There are also able-bodied performers and those who are not. And basically, the platform of burlesque is to show that what you see on stage is real, but it's also sexy, and again, something to be celebrated.
Would you like to add to that?
Yeah. Burlesque is full of people from all walks of living. And just to add to what Lady Mabuhay was saying, it's a space where every body is celebrated, and it's encouraging. It's a way for everyone to feel sexy, no matter how they look like.
I love that. I love being able to say that it's a celebration of your body, and that you're taking ownership and really allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that position. You know, like being on stage half naked with like little pieces of clothing and performing and telling a story. How do you prepare mentally and physically for a performance like that?
For me, it's just like any other performance. So anytime I perform, I always think about the story that I want to tell. And when I take the time to really think about that, I go on with intention. And I think that kind of helps me feel more comfortable doing whatever I'm about to do.
And going off of what Karen said, I think that for me, and I think that this is ultimately the goal of every artist, is to provide some kind of connection. You are a conduit between the audience and a bigger story or a bigger message. And so if you remember that, that's, at least for me, I think that when I remember that, then I remember that it's, that I'm there to remind them of something bigger, of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember many years ago when we first met, Lady, you mentioned that you do burlesque for yourself and not for the pleasure of any man who is in the audience. Can you explain that further?
Yeah, I think that ultimately when you're doing something when you're doing something with full happiness and pleasure, you should always do it for yourself. In the past, it used to be for men's entertainment. I think that's what we might have talked about in the past, especially in the 40s and 50s. It was primarily for men's entertainment. But now, because you see so many different types of people in the audience, not just men, and it's a celebration of bodies, I think that it's more of a sense of celebration of yourself. And as a result, pleasure for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
In our political climate or some political correctness mode, were you scared of telling a story in your own with your own opinions and expression that other people will attack you for? I mean, we're such diverse and we're so divided or united, whatever you say, but are you scared of like people will get mad at you because you said something? And does that do you consider that when you're performing?
Well, I think so there are two aspects of that. The goal of any artist is to provoke provoke people to think, right? But at the same time, we are in a political climate where we have to be very careful about what we say and how we say so as not to offend the sensibilities. And also just so that we normalize a certain way to express art and be funny without marginalizing any person or any group of people.
What about you, Karen, Joy?
So,
Yeah. This is really heavy. I think with everything that's happening and the current state of the world and racism and the hate towards the Asian American, Pacific Islander community, and the hate crimes towards Asian women specifically as of late, has forced me at least to have a conversation with myself about everything and how I carry myself in the world and I think I have chosen to continue to use burlesque as a way to just become stronger and to not hide, to hide from what's happening and to feel like I should be afraid to be myself. And I am choosing to use burlesque and my art form and anything that I do creatively or how I carry myself in the world to tell people and to encourage other Asian women to not be scared to just not be scared and to be who we are openly and bravely.
Yeah. Have you or Lady ever felt unsafe when you are performing and being in that vulnerable state?
Oh, no. No. I've never, I think it's a good place to feel vulnerable when you're on stage. Because again, as an artist, when you're being that conduit between the audience and something, a bigger message, when you show that, then you're creating duende, like this rapport with the audience, but at the same time, you're showing them that you're relatable.
Yeah, people in the audience.
So when you're on stage, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, thanks. Audience members I have been privileged to have a very loving and supportive audience in majority of my performances. I actually have felt less safe when I'm off stage, when I am, on the train, or when I am, I'm actually a bartender as well. And I think I have felt more vulnerable being a woman bartender, more so than being on stage.
When you're on stage, Lady and Karen, do you feel like sometimes like you're being objectified? And how does that make you feel?
Yes, with consent.
Lady?
With my consent. I think because in the theater, just on the stage in general, it's an environment that's controlled. Then you can allow for that if that's something that you want, if that's your desire. And yeah, there are times when I'll be honest, I've played the stereotype of the Filipina, and I lock eyes with an old white man, and it gives this very interesting stereotyped dynamic, and I play off of that because at the same time I'm telling something very telling by doing that, but that's only because I am giving consent.
What's a perfect show?
Can you say that again, please?
I was just doing a follow up. Do you get propositioned after a show?
No, I never have.
Oh,
Well, what do you mean by proposition? Like
you
proposition
get
for
calling cards
marriage
from
or something else?
telephone numbers.
I know what you're talking about. No, no. I think the environment of burlesque is one in which I think it's understood that the performers are performers. They're not, again, for anybody else's pleasure in that way, and that it's they're doing their job. You know, we're doing our job on stage to entertain.
I don't know if there's
Karen?
time. I just want to know what's the perfect performance. I know virtually it's hard, but
Did
What-
Rachelle give me the signal yet? Not yet. Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat the question, Jen? I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't know if we have time, but I'll let Cristina end.
Oh, so I didn't see Rachelle's then. I'm so sorry. So it looks like we're running out of time. Lady and Karen, thanks so much for a very enlightening conversation. This is really very mind-opening for all of us, at least for the three of us, Jen,
you.
Rachelle, and myself. Yeah, and ladies, before we go, would you like to share one final word for our viewers? Just a short one, please.
Sure. I am going to be part of an online virtual burlesque show that will be featuring Filipinx performers all over the world. And it will be in June, and I suspect we don't have a date yet, but I suspect it'll be around Filipino Independence Day.
Oh wow.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. I just want to say thank you for having me. I appreciate Makilala for providing a space for women who look, or people who look like me, to tell a story. So thank you so much.
So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Lady Mabuhay and Karen Joy Pangantihon. Burlesque does encourage appreciation of one's body, and for those with body image issues, we have these two Pinay trailblazers to thank for paving the way. Join us again for another exciting, provocative episode here on Makilala. Thanks for watching.